Well, so what's the one thing that's more important than a healthy meal, drinking tons of water, and exercise? Do you want to guess it now?
Sleep.
Sleep. Sleep is good. Sleep is good. Sleep is good. I would say it's maintaining a positive inner dialogue, also known as positive self-talk. It's I would look at positive self-talks as gas, which makes the car move. So with so much writing on what you're saying to yourself, how do you keep positive daily? Hey, thank you for joining us for another Rare Leader conversation. I am Tony Jalen, joined by the wonderful curly-haired Neil Jalen. Hey, thank you guys for joining us for another rare conversation. And this month we're talking a lot about self-talk, self-image, because your identity does determine a lot in terms of how you show up, your actions, and also makes an impact on your relationships. So we're going to talk today about 5 tips for keeping your self-talk positive on a daily basis. Now, this is a battle for us all, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. I just went through this yesterday. So one of my colleagues we bought Girl Scout cookies from them. I haven't told you this story yet, Danielle. And of course, there's cookies in there, and I had my lunch earlier in the day. I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and have see what we have for the cookies again that I bought because I forgot. I'm going to share it with some coworkers and people here at the office. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. Then all of a sudden, everyone left. I'm like, what else is in the box? And next thing you know, there's these things called peanut butter patties.
Don't touch those. Those were mine.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it happened. It happened. And I had a couple more, maybe more than I wanted to. And of course, I jumped on the scale this morning going, oh my goodness gracious. My self talk wasn't good for that moment. So I had to go ahead and relax and breathe and realize, be mindful of your self talk because you don't want to go down that spiral. When you looked at your self talk, Danielle, what are some things, and when we talk these 5 tips, there's 5 tips in terms of this. For those of you guys who are watching live via the Rare Facebook group, YouTube, Twitter, one of the things we talk about to work on positive self talk is knowing your triggers. Because certain people, places, and situations are going to raise up an instant series of negative self talk messages. What statements can one person use to combat the messages which always comes up when you're triggered?
I don't know if you're referring to like something I know you continually always say is remain cool, calm, and collect. Cool, calm, and collect. Cool, calm, and collect. That for me, I guess I don't really necessarily have a certain statement that I would repeat to myself to remind myself of what a trigger would be, but just really like, does this really matter? Like, is being upset about this really going to matter? Like, what is it going to help being upset about this?
hmm Well, I think once you know your triggers, because there's different types of triggers. In the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0 talks about there's physical triggers that happen. There are environmental triggers. There's mental triggers. And there's certain people, places, and situations that are going to raise up an instant series of negative self-talk messages. I just read this book for my book of the month last month. It's called The Power of the Spoken Word. It's by Florence Scovel Shinn. And she goes on there and says, I have it highlighted, is that your only enemies are within yourself. You know, so instead of always wanting to focus on changing the environment, we got to change ourselves internally before the external changes. I think that's the thing in terms of knowing your triggers. Like for me, I do not like losing. Like it, I'm gotten better over the years. I'm not breaking any racquetball rackets now. That's the reason why I say the statement of cool, calm, collect. When I'm feeling tense, I go, okay, cool, calm, collect. That's a statement thing. So when you're getting triggered, you gotta have a statement to go ahead and snap yourself into to bring you back to reality, so to speak. Um, but I know when I lose, I will eat. Is that called eating your emotions, Danielle?
It is. I think you did that on Sunday.
I did do that on Sunday, and I so felt that on Monday. The, so felt that on Monday. So for those of you guys who are watching, think about when those situations arise, or that person walks in the room that triggers you. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't like that person. I don't like that person. um, what can you do to diffuse the situation before it gets out of hand?
For me, when that happens, I have learned now that I just need to remind myself, be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind, because whatever energy is going on inside of me is how my energy or my words or my tone is going to come off on the outside.
Hmm.
Because we a lot of times have that moment where that was like, was that my inside voice talking? Um, which happens. And so it's really important to remind yourself, like, once you are aware of what your triggers are, is to how that can be reversed.
Yeah, because like you and I were talking about last night, that you may not be able to control your thoughts. You can control your words, though. You can control your behavior. And I think that's what comes into the second tip for keeping your self talk positive on a daily basis, and that's do an inventory. Periodically check your inner dialogue. Is it negative? Like literally asking the question, am I being negative? We ran into a situation, we ran into a friend, and they're like, man, I am so negative right now. Uh, what are some ways then, when you're going to do an inventory check, that you can be more mindful to insert like positive dialogue cues to keep yourself on an even keel? What are some things you do when you want to do an inventory check?
I think when you acknowledge it, like, oh my gosh, I'm being so negative right now. I think just being able to acknowledge it and then be able to laugh about it, because sometimes it does, like, the things that we start to say sound absolutely ridiculous. And there are certain topics as of late that do trigger a different energy and emotion because things are stupid right now. Like, you just want to scream, like, wake up, like, what is the deal? And yet at the same time, you want to be respectful for people that are truly going through that. And you don't, like, you want to be mindful of that this is their reality at this point. So I think being the bigger person, you kind of do need to just be like, you know what, I'm going to laugh about this because you just don't know what you don't know. It is what it is.
All right. And I think too is that you got to surround yourself with people when you want to do an inventory check. They're going to actually say, you're being a little grumpy right there. Even though they may come at you like that, even though you might get more grumpy because you're getting told that you're grumpy. Um,
I know
but
what you're
someone,
talking about.
right, but someone that's going to be honest with you and say, that tone you're having right now, that reaction, that's not normal like you. Like, what's going on? Because sometimes we don't know, because it happens sometimes gradually, and then it becomes a volcano that erupts later. So simply just asking yourself a question of reflection of, is it getting negative right now? Like, do I need to step out of this right now? Am I going down that path of negativity? Like, is this helping me or hurting me? And that's where that self-talk becomes so great. There's a book by Shad Helmstetter. It says, uh, "What should I say to myself?" I think that's the title. Just look Shad Helmstetter. Great book again on self-talk, because know our we can really create the world that we want. You see that happen in psychiatric hospitals. You know, There's that this story of a lady who kept on having a baby every day. She obviously didn't have a baby every day, but it was her self-talk, just she created her reality. Another tip that I've learned is you gotta laugh. Think about it. Athletes, if you're watching, if you're an athlete, you know what I'm talking about. You make that mistake, you sometimes dwell on that mistake. Instead of saying, next, move on. Well, you gotta do something to shift your energy. And for me, it's laughing. And I know you laugh when you're having that self-talk or situation come up that's being a trigger. How do you find humor in situations to help you stay positive?
I think just making a joke of it, like when I will reference like when we're at volleyball tournaments and someone just makes a complete like, where did that come from hit or something, like you just have to laugh. It happens. It's like we all make mistakes and things happen, and it's like everything else, like life is serious to begin with. So it's like you have to somehow be able to make it enjoyable.
Hmm.
If you can't laugh and find those things that bring you joy, then you are in a place that probably needs to be looked at, because you should be able to laugh. I think what I don't know what I saw, a baby laughs 300 times a day, and it could take us how many, like me, we maybe laugh 40 as an adult. And it's like, how can a baby have that much joy and be laughing? Like, where did we lose that? And it was just a good reminder, like, to not take things so seriously. Like we are meant to enjoy life, our relationships, our friendships, the things that we're doing in life, not for everything to be so serious all the time.
You have the ability, Danielle. For those of you guys who know Danielle, she has this uncanny ability to laugh at things that you're like, "Why are you laughing?" Question that comes in my mind, but yet I start laughing because she's laughing, and it's one of the traits that I've been able to learn from her over the years is that ability to laugh, because I'll probably laugh at the most. I'll give you an example. I was younger, some friends and I were riding bikes, and my friend had his foot get caught in the front wheel. So he went, butt over head in his bike and slammed his head on the ground. And I couldn't stop laughing. I was laughing and I felt so bad. I've learned how to laugh at better things now than someone getting hurt. That may not be another discussion for another time, but laugh. So that's a third tip to go ahead and create better self talk. What about this one? Hang with the right crowd. I think this is an important one.
I think it's important because I think it's easy to throw a pity party, and it's easy to get stuck in the pity party depending on who you're around. And it's important to find those people and to be with those that are more positive and uplifting, because even if they're having a bad day and you're not, like you've learned how to be an encourager and to help them through that. Or if you need that help, that you have those people there that aren't going to let you just sit and wallow in your feelings, and will help you find the ways to create that more positive environment.
It's interesting. And I remember when I was younger, I was hanging around the wrong crowd, so to speak, for a moment in time. And my loving parents, I love them. They just allowed me to go ahead and make the choices that I was making. Yet they warned me. They said, you hang around that crowd long enough, you're going to start becoming part of that crowd, right? You hang around positive people, you become the sum average of the 5 people you hang around with. So you hang around level 10 positive people, you know, 5 of the 5 people are 9 to 10 on positive. You're going to be around that, 9.2. They're negative, and what had happened was these gentlemen, that guys, boys that I was hanging around with, had a very big potty mouth. I mean, everything else out of their mouth was, bleep this, bleep that, bleep that. And I remember getting in a disagreement with my mother. And I know I am not proud to admit this, especially here on a live channel, so to speak. But I swore at my mom. I know that was very naughty. Please, mom. I still feel bad about it still to this day, even though that was like 30 years ago. Um, and I felt the punishment of that too at the same time. But because look at the crowd we are. And I think that happens so often. We pick up the habits of those people around us that we spend a lot of time with. So I say it with the relationships. If you're not going through a good time in your relationship and you start hanging around people who are not going through a good time in their relationship, you start to pick up their habits as well. You know, you see it in so many places. I was just talking to someone here just recently, and they were talking about, their significant other. I'm like, all right, you got to stop that right now. Because everyone you're telling to, you're just sucking them into that, and they're just feeding into that. And they're like, you make a good point there. I go, I know. Stop it. The best way to improve a relationship with someone is to talk well about them behind their back. You know. The next one we talk about is find inspiration. We talk about creating that environment for your success. You look at my office here. I got my vision board up here. I've got my goal booklet here that I actually just read again this morning. What are some ways that you do and are doing and will start or continue to do to find inspiration to create an environment for success for yourself?
For me, I think the biggest part of it is reading the right books and reading well, I shouldn't say reading the right books, just reading books in general, like for self-help and like in using them to be more aware of different areas in my life that maybe I didn't even realize were triggers or were things that were in my control or things that I was using as crutches that were holding me back from different things. And so I think that's like one of the biggest things is continuing to read different books that will help me continue to grow in all areas of my life. And then as well as I know that I've been posting little things on social media lately, and it's not necessarily just like to post for other people. It's to post for me as an accountability to like, I made this commitment to myself and I'm celebrating it. And it's not necessarily that I'm looking for others to be like, oh, hey, good job, way to get out there and whatever. Like it's for me. Like I need to create that environment because I'm the only one that's going to care about me to take care of me. No one else is going to do that for me. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And it's not necessarily that those things work for everyone. And it's not comfortable. Like, hey, like they're just little things that are repeated in my head to continue moving forward. And if it helps somebody else, that's great. If not, like it's not a big deal. It's those things that I needed to say to myself to get out there to get it done.
That's super powerful to remember that. Like, you're not doing it to get a like, you're not doing it to get a comment. You're doing it for yourself as an accountability check-in for yourself because it's documented, right? If it's not documented, it doesn't exist. And, some of the things that I do to find inspiration, like on my phone, I have my vision board, wherever my phone is at right now. I got my vision boards up there. I got it on my bathroom mirror. Um, and if you look on my desk right here, I have little reminders. I think saying little reminders to yourself to put on your desk for the next day to read is really cool. Like, you know what? Pat yourself on the back because you made 15 calls today. You know, I'll act now. You know, I have a thing that says, I want to be good. Well, I want to be good. I want the world to be better because I am here. I am making a difference every single day. You look at people like Muhammad Ali. People go, oh, he was braggadocious. He wasn't doing it to impress everybody else. You read some of his books and the interviews he did, he goes, I did it to feed me. He goes, I did it to go ahead and make myself believe it, right? You know, you look at fear. Fear is just a flipped upside down version of faith. And I think, when you're finding inspiration for yourself and engaging in daily positive self-talk, is the one habit you want to spend time creating. Okay? There's no substitute for this kind of dialogue. What you focus on is what you get. And doing an inventory of, okay, you know what? Am I being critical of others? Am I starting getting in my own way? Sometimes we gotta give our kicker in ourselves in our own butt, right? So, for example, another thing that I find inspiration with is that I get on the scale every morning. People go, "You shouldn't weigh yourself every one day." Says who? Like, where is it written that you shouldn't? Because I didn't weigh myself for 5 days, and you can tell I'm still burned up a little bit about this morning, right? Um, but find things, create an environment that's going to remind you of what's important to you. So, like, for me, I want to look at my goals often because it's easy to get off track. Forget the things that I wrote down, even though I wrote them down. But those are 5 tips for keeping self-talk. So, Danielle, you shared reading as well. What's something in terms of the book that you read here last month that helped inspire you a little bit and create a little bit more awareness around things?
Well, it's just that I think for me, like my actions I'm responsible for can either move me forward or keep me in bondage of where I'm at. And I think that's the biggest thing to remember is like you can blame your past or you can learn from your past. You can blame situations or you can learn from situations. And when you finally are able to make that switch that I'm at where I'm at because of the actions I took, what happens if I take the actions that will lead me in the right direction and help me grow forward? Like I have no idea what the outcome is going to be, but I know doing it is going to get me somewhere a lot closer to it than not doing it. And so I think that was probably one of the biggest things is like I'm my own roadblock. What I'm doing, my actions, my thoughts, my words, I'm I'm in charge of that and only I can make the changes for it. I can't depend on others around me to make those changes for me because it's not their life. They don't care about what I'm doing. They care about what they're doing. And it's important to remember that like when you're out at the gym or you're out for a walk, other people don't really care. They're in their own heads thinking about the
True.
same thing. Like, oh my gosh, what's this person thinking about me? I can guarantee you they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves and what they look like and what they're doing. Am I doing the right thing? Do I look silly? Oh my gosh, like those are the things that we really have to be aware of. And only we are responsible for ourselves.
But that sounds so easy to do, though. Like, I mean, I think that's another topic for a discussion. We can write that down, right? Taking responsibility. But it's interesting that you said that, we can learn from the past, right? And we didn't read the same book, by the way, everyone. One of the things I highlighted in this book was learn from the little things and you'll be ready to handle the big things. You know? And then another thing that I wrote down, it says, be strong, fear not. Fear is inverted faith. It is faithful, is faith turned upside down. When you are fearful, you begin to attract the thing you fear. You are magnetizing it. You're hypnotized by the race thought when you are afraid. Think about that. And that's why creating this environment for success and finding that inspiration is so important in creating that self-talk. Because at the end of the day, who's the ultimate motivator? It's you. It's the person looking in the mirror. So we covered 5 different ways to go ahead and create self-talk today. Number 1 was know your triggers. 2, do an inventory. Laugh. Hang with the right crowd. Find inspiration. So as we close up here, Danielle, what would you say are some final thoughts that you would like to share in regards to keeping your self-talk positive on a daily basis?
You are the right author of your own story, and you are either going to write your story the way that you want it to be and create those steps to make it happen, or you're going to be the author of why it didn't happen to you. And again, that falls on you. And so I think that it's important to, we talked about last night, you can't control your thoughts, but you can control your words. And at the moment that you said it to me, in my head, my thought was, I don't really care. I don't have time for this. And I walked past you and I said, right on, because I can choose to feed into your encouragement that you're growing and you're learning, or I can destroy it too. And it's not your ambition is not my my ability, or whatever you want to call it, to take away from you. Like, I should be feeding that. And so it really does come down to how aware am I of the words that I'm speaking, not only in my own life, but into the lives of those that are around me then too.
Yeah, so I wish I can have my, let's see if I have it here. Oh, I do have it. I do have it. And I'm going to share this with everyone here because I thought this was a good thought. All right. So when we talked about self-talk, remember this. And you mentioned this, not like you our job is to lift others up, right? That's our responsibility, to be that encourager, to be that light, to be that agent of hope and change. And this is a thought when it comes to self-talk is don't condemn, don't complain, because you have a choice to make a change. It's a choice. Thank you for joining us again. If you found value in this, please make sure to share this, follow, comment. Next week, we'll be back here again as we talk again about identity, self-image, and positive self-talk. It's a topic that's made a big difference for both of our lives. We thank you guys for your support. Remember to be we're a leader. Our mission is to encourage you and equip you with the tools, the thoughts, the relationships to help you live your best life personally and professionally. Until next week, onwards and upwards. This is Daniil. I am Tony. Until next time, appreciate you all.